All right, good afternoon, everybody. I think we'll go ahead and get started with our session. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to our panel entitled The Sunflower That Grew from Concrete, Resiliency and Reentry in the Garden. We are super proud to be the U.S. Green Building Council LA's 2020 Legacy Project. Our project is called the West Adams Resiliency Garden, and we are a collaboration of Angel City Urban Farms and the historic McCarty Memorial Christian Church on the corner of Adams Boulevard and 10th Street in the West Adams neighborhood of South Los Angeles. I am Claire. Hello, everyone. I'm your moderator for the afternoon. And for my day job, I work to expand access to healthy food in all neighborhoods through a social enterprise called Every Table. And in the context of our conversation today, I see more people joining, which is exciting. Welcome, welcome. In the context of our conversation today, I am First Lady of McCarty, meaning that I am blessed to be married to the senior pastor of the church, who is one of our panelists, Reverend Eddie Anderson, affectionately known as Pastor Eddie. He is also an organizer with Black Lives Matter LA and LA Voice. And we're joined today with our very dear friends, author, activist, community builder, Tobias Tubbs, who led the Inside Garden program across multiple state prisons, among many other remarkable contributions that he will tell you all about, and landscape designer, gardener, and earth wisdom keeper, Brendan Wilson. And together, the two of them make up Angel City Urban Farms. So that's us. We're excited to talk to you about the West Adams Resiliency Garden Project. I want to just say that you are free to use the Zoom chat function if you have any questions for us. We have held some time at the very end of our discussion to answer your questions, and we look forward to hearing from you. So just FYI, I will be looking at the HOVA app as well, if that's your preference, but you are welcome to use the Zoom chat. So just to give you sort of a high-level overview about our project is to build a rooftop aeroponic garden and a ground-level soil-based garden on top of and around McCarty Church's educational building, and I'll show you some pictures of that later. Our project is to expand access to healthy food in a food desert neighborhood. Our project is to foster social connection and provide education about climate, food, and resiliency. And perhaps most importantly, to create a healing space of connection and community for people going through reentry after incarceration. And as you'll hear, our focus is really on those who are returning home from the trauma of prison. But whether you have direct experience of the prison industrial system or not, reentry as a concept really includes all of us, and reentry is an invitation for all of us. So that's where we want to start, is sort of defining what we mean by reentry and what we mean by resiliency. And so I am going to invite Tobias to kind of kick it off for us. Tobias, the West Adams Resiliency Garden Project is very much deeply informed by your insights and also by your experience. And I would love for you to kick off this conversation with your thoughts on the meaning of resiliency and reentry and how it shows up in your life.
First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for giving us this opportunity. If you didn't hear us open this morning, I'm gonna utilize a line out of the spoken word. After Ben, I was able to give a spoken word, and this piece was actually written when I was incarcerated. It was about 29 years ago, 1991, sentenced to death. And as, I don't know if you know or not, most prisons are in deserts. And so not are they just said to be food deserts or social deserts. They're literally, the prison I was in is in Calipatria, California, which was at average 123 degrees. So just imagine a young person in the midst of their pubescence, you know, taken far away from home with no green. So this piece is called Green. I'm gonna share two pieces, then I will answer your question. The first part of the acronym is G, and I'm just going to say it so a person can really understand what I'm saying. In the beginning, God said, keep the garden. They tell me I am the rotten fruit, discarded from the heavens. They sought to damage my precious roots. Maybe someone will compost me so I can help America's most troubled youth. That's the G. And then I'm gonna utilize the E. I got E squared, two E's in the word green. It says, energy is informational, as information is energetic, so we never die. So we never die. We only transmit ourselves to the other dimensions. So I escape back into the heavens. Thank God for my roots back in the garden, a whole and perfect fruit. With that said, you know, it was horrid. It was horrible being in prison. You know, as I said earlier, my roots are in South Carolina and also South Central. So majority of my teenage years, I'm used to sunflower gardens. I'm used to, I'm talking about this open earth and life and trees and sunflowers and fishing and hunting. And then just being in Los Angeles for a couple years, be taken inside of a judicial system in which you had no knowledge, never been in trouble before, never been arrested, never shot a gun at a person, never even been in a fight my entire life, to be thrown at one of the most dangerous prisons in the United States. And so my only escape was in my own imagination. And so I used to create places, green places, inside of my mind. And so to answer your question, to be able to go to Lancaster State Prison, where I was one of the people who founded, and I was the lead on the Insight Gardening Program. You know, we was the first one to plant sunflowers in the desert. And, you know, sunflowers normally don't grow in sand, they need soil. So to get men, young men, older men, veterans, Christians, Muslims, Jews, people from other spiritual walks, native brothers, staff, men and women along in this concept that the most hardened so-called criminals California has to offer is going to be a part of a community garden in a level 4 institution. It was unheard of, you know, it was the first. And so I was very proud to get those sunflower seeds, create a raised bed, and to plant those seeds. With that said, the sunflowers blossomed. As you know about sunflowers, in the earth of wisdoms, you know, our native brothers and sisters, before they even harvested corn, they harvested sunflowers, you know. So with that led me to my commutation. The governor saw the work, the healing work that I participated in, and I asked him to release me to Leimert Park, where half of my life had taken before the 20 years and 30 years of prison. And he obliged me. And immediately on my return, I wanted to set up what we was avoiding. There is good people doing good work in reentry, but it's nothing grassroots that I'm familiar with. And I am a part of most reentry programs, from the most famous ones to those in which y'all probably know nothing about. I met Brendan, my brother, October 31st, when most people were celebrating Halloween. We were celebrating the making of our LLC, which is, you know, Hazel City Urban Farms, in which reentry starts in that relationship. Resiliency starts in that relationship. Brendan is literally the first white man that I've ever loved outside of prison, where I met one, David Mayshore, but Brendan, and that's big because I come from a revolutionary Black liberation kind of family where white people are not to be trusted. And so when you see what you see in your community, whether you're in South Carolina where the Ku Klux Klan is marching, where you're in LA when LAPD is busting your skull and arresting you for reasons for things you have not done, the relationship that me and Brendan had created manifested as an LLC with a component of Reentry. And so when we teamed up with the church, with Pastor Eddie and yourself, you know, it was a marriage made in heaven, in which we represented to Ben and United States Green Building Council LA, and we won the legacy. You know, this is legacy. Just imagine a young man in prison to die, saying that you have no good. You have no good. I'm the rotten fruit. Y'all composted me. You feel me? So it was all good. Why? So I can be able to help America's most troubled youth. One of the first things me and Rennie discussed was compost. That even those things that are castigated, thrown away, discarded, we can use them. And we can create something that is very, I guess, revolutionary in these times. So to answer your question, this project and what we're doing is about connection. You know, when I had to go to the site, whatever it's called, Hoover, whatever it's called, which was a pain in the behind for people like me. They asked me what school I went to. I said the School of Hard Knocks in the Concrete Jungle. They asked me what's my degree, connection and influencing. And that's what I'm here to do. You know, connect us to our humanity. Because I've been to places where our humanity was totally disregarded. People have come to the worst of themselves, and I've seen without help, without support, without any kind of love from outside sources, regain our sense of self and those precious roots that I spoke of inside the poem. They tried to destroy our precious roots. So I figured out inside myself as I closed that the keeping of the garden, in which most spiritual paths believes of, is actually the garden of your own heart. You know, and once we get back into our own heart spaces and we begin to love, another part of the poem says that they tried to kill me, the universe, she fills me. She empowers me with the infinite capacity to love with elasticity. To love with elasticity when the gun tower is shooting at you, when people are beating you, when you don't have proper water, proper food. And there's no reason to love other than you have the capacity to do so. That is where I personally come from. And this is the kind of energy that I found in you all, whether it was Brendan, Claire, yourself, Pastor Eddie, and now Ben Stapleton, and the beautiful family of people that he brought. So this is what we're seeking to bring back to our communities, and I'm happy to be a part of it. And thank you.
Thank you, Tobias. I really appreciate you and appreciate those opening comments. And now I'd love to introduce, you know, kind of the site where this project is really taking place and understand the location, because the location is also a part of the meaning and impact that is underway through the West Adams Resiliency Garden. So I'm going to bring in Pastor Eddie to talk a little bit about the church site, McCarty Memorial Christian Church. And my question for you, Eddie, is what is special about McCarty? And as a house of worship in South LA, what is our legacy? And then what is the future we're building? And what does that have to do with food and resiliency in your book?
Thank you, Claire. The question, Brendan, Tobias, always good to be with you. Ben and others, thank you for having us. So McCarty Memorial Christian Church is unique in that it was built out of dream and imagination in a time not that different than our own, where the nation had just got through with the pandemic, that was going through a depression, the Great Depression, in the middle of the early 1930s. Two leaders, Dr. Isaac McCarty and his wife, built what the architecturists Kingsbury and Barber had said was one of the best versions of Gothic architecture in the middle of the 1930s, so in the middle of the Great Depression. And the records show that the reason why they built this edifice or building was because they wanted to inspire the community and give them hope in the middle of desperation. And so that's what they gave us as a legacy. So if you notice, it's a big Gothic cathedral, similar to what you would see in Exeter Cathedral in London or what you've seen in Hollywood. It has one of the highest towers in the city, and it was built in the middle of West Adams, in the middle of South Los Angeles. And the real task that the church had was that now that we have this beautiful edifice, this beautiful architecture, how do we become social architects for our community to really inspire and to bring folks together and to turn this sacred place into a sacred space for folks so that they can chill the inner workings of their garden. And so from the 1930s on, church has had a creed of practicing union and really opening up ourselves to the neighborhood around us. So what does that look like? It looks like during the 50s, our church was one of the first churches in Los Angeles to really take on head on what does it mean to do integration. And that wasn't easy, right? Half the congregation left. You know, the congregation when it opened had over 1,300 members. When they did integration, the numbers went down to 300 members, but they kept moving forward. They believed that this is what the sacred duties of God was calling them to do, to really inspire. And so that meant opening up a preschool that was integrated for folks in the neighborhood so people can have childcare for their children. It looks like during the 60s, the church, being that it had taken on integration, working to bust, doing housing covenant busting, which meant that, as you know, Los Angeles is a segregated city, right? There were red lines all across the city. You couldn't go north of and west of Wilshire in some areas, that Black people were confined to one area. And so our church worked together, and there's stories of members of our congregation where they would send out a white member to, you know, try to apply for the place and then move in the Black family and KKK coming down the street and protesting and saying, we don't want you here. So it meant expanding opportunities, saying that this community can be something different, that we can have a more of imagination. It looks like during the 70s and 80s, opening up building programs and projects and houses folks as the homelessness crisis began to rise and the crack epidemic took over South Los Angeles, so folks could sleep in the actual space, to make this space not just a big inspirational space, but a sacred place as well. And it looks like now what we've been doing was working with Black Lives Matter Los Angeles, working with the Poor People's campaign to really bring together folks to really help us realize that all of our roots run deep. And as scripture says, deep calls out to deep. So when we are feeling pain and heartache, and when we're feeling depression, and we're feeling the brunt of police brutality in the still a segregated city and system, which prevents us from having good food in our neighborhood, we can reach out and talk to one another. And so even during the pandemic, we've been feeding the neighborhood. We feed thousands of people a month to make sure that they have food, because food is not readily available. I had to stop because the person who ran that program just passed away this week, and it was very dear to me. And so we're all feeling real pain in this moment. And this garden is one thing that our community has really rallied around, and they are excited about, because it's another way that we can show that the way that we make our places sacred, that architecture is beautiful, but it means nothing if it's not helping the community. And the way that we can make our place sacred is by opening up our doors and really feeding the neighborhood, making sure our roots are running deep. We have youth programs from dance to preschool, but the most important thing is how are we feeding the soul of our people? And you can't feed the soul of people if their body is not nourished. And so that is what we are working towards now in this moment, and we continue to work with Black Lives Matter. I'll just say this before I turn it back to Claire, that food justice is a very real component, in that this month, actually, we had our Black Lives Matter meeting for the city of Los Angeles and county of Los Angeles during this time of COVID-19 and increased racial brutality. One of the things that we gave away in partnership with Black Lives Matter to everyone who came to the meeting was over 200 bags of fresh produce. And we gave it to people because we know that you need strength for this fight, especially when people are telling you that you're not worth it. And so that's what the community's been doing and creating the movement in our space. So to give that to you, Claire.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I think it's very important to know our history and our context and the space itself and what it represents, because that also deeply informs the West Adams Resiliency Garden Project. And last but certainly not least, I'd love to get a little bit more into the garden concept, what it is we're planning to build, what we've started to build. So I'm going to bring Brendan in on this. So Brendan, you know, many people might not actually really know about aeroponic technology specifically. I think it would be amazing if you could share us a little bit about how aeroponics works and how it promotes environmental sustainability. And then just broadly, what is the concept for this rooftop garden?
Thank you. And thank you, Pastor Eddie. I want to start with Pastor Eddie here, really, because this project started as an inspiration inside of him. And I've been a landscape designer for years and years and years, and my first favorite kinds of clients are people who have a vision, people who have an inspiration. And here Pastor Eddie came to us. And I'm good at sort of sussing out what is inside of somebody's inspiration. That's what makes me a good designer. I'm a good listener. And so I was already inspired by this project before we even started designing it, because I could feel the electricity in the church and in him in particular. At this time, I had only just barely met Tobias. So our our friendship was still in the womb, if you might say. So the heart of this project is, of course, the rooftop garden. And as you say, it's in a particularly interesting place in the city. It is right next to the 10 freeway, which is what I think is a racial segregation barrier. I think of that as being the primary one in the city. And I'm born and raised here in Los Angeles, so I know what that feels like from my side too. And it has this expansive view from the Hollywood sign all the way down to the Leimert Park, and it looks out over that whole landscape. And when you're up there, you have a sense of vertigo, because the sight lines are so far away, they're so long, and it's almost a little intimidating. I'm sure Claire will appreciate that. It just feels a little precarious, but grand all at the same time. And so I won't describe the way you get to the rooftop, but once you are there, you're sort of in the middle of the whole area. And there are considerations that the city requires us to keep our physical bodies away from the edge of the building. So that informed part of the initial design inspiration. But I wanted to create a space that was sort of womb-like insofar as it gave us a green boundary between us and the city on all sides, and a canopy above our heads, so we could have a little bit of shade and a little bit of dappled light, because the other thing about the rooftop garden is that there is no shade, and so it's very glary. It's hard on the eyes. So there's a hell of a design project to begin with. And we very quickly came to the conclusion that we should use the technology called aeroponics, which is very, very similar to hydroponics and aquaponics insofar as it doesn't rely on soil. And it would seem, for obvious reasons, that we don't want to bring soil up to the top of a roof because it's heavy. And just simply getting it up there is too laborious, too expensive, and so forth. So aeroponics, as I said, is a soilless growing technique. It sort of has its claim to fame insofar as it is the technique that NASA is planning on using when they send astronauts deep out into space and they need to grow their own food. So you can imagine it's lean, it's lightweight, and it's very it's super productive. So unlike hydroponics, aeroponics uses a mist of nutrient solution to water the plant's roots. So the plant's roots hang in an open void and in what is essentially an enclosed box. The mister heads go off once every 5 minutes for just a few seconds. So there isn't a whole lot of energy used. There's not a lot of action. And because the roots, again, are in open space, they're allowed to breathe. And breathing in food production is or rather, the idea of the roots needing to breathe in food production is something that people don't think about very often. And in fact, even the concept is new-ish to me. But apparently, roots really enjoy being in an oxygen-rich environment. And I think, well, I could riff off that for an hour. But does that sound like a good explanation, Claire?
That was a beautiful explanation. That was wonderful. Thank you. And now that everyone's been introduced to this project at all of these different levels, I want to just show a few pictures so you can really conceptualize it. And by the way, I'm a big soil advocate, so that's why we also have a soil-based garden. And I just think it's a beautiful thing and we've talked a lot about how we're both kind of in the earth and in the heavens between our soil-based garden on the ground level and then the rooftop garden with that epic, beautiful view of the entire city of LA, and just the importance of that polarity and that balance. So I just want to show you some pictures of the site. Bear with me. This is not my favorite part of Zoom. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
All right. Let me see if I could go to slideshow view. How about now? Is it slideshow view?
Not yet. Okay.
Fantastic. Okay, so that's McCarty Memorial Christian Church, as you can see on the corner with the steeple. And this is the corner of Adams Boulevard and 10th Street. And these are the locations of where the gardens will take place. So in the picture on the right, that's the education building. So you can see the clear, flat, open rooftop there, right next to the sanctuary. It's a huge space. And then on the left side is what we call the curved walkway. And you might know this is between the education building and the sanctuary. And you might notice on the right, there's some plants. And that's where the soil-based garden is going to go. This is a plan for the rooftop garden done by Joshua Foster from KFA Architects, who has very generously lent his time to this project. And I think he might be on with us today. And if he is, I'm going to bring him in a bit, although I know he's traveling. But this is just a concept here for the rooftop garden, as Brendan was describing it, kind of in the center of the rooftop with that womb-like feel. That gives a little bit more context to the design. And by the way, we just submitted maybe a couple weeks ago these renderings to city planning. So we're waiting for our permits, and fingers crossed that happens soon so that we're able to move forward with the building. And then lastly, I just wanted to show a quick image here of aeroponics to put some color on what Brendan was describing in terms of the technology itself, with the mist spray of nutrient solution on the roots of the plant. And this was just an image I found on Shutterstock that I thought was kind of cool because it shows kind of different setups and scenarios for aeroponics. A lot of times if you Google aeroponics, you'll see a lot of towers. Our project is going to involve benches more akin to what you see here. So excited about just the space making element of this as well. All right, I'm gonna stop share and come back. So before we open it up for Q&A, I do have one more question for Tobias and Brendan. And also just to kind of orient people to where we are right now. Obviously, it goes without saying that COVID-19 really impacted our ability to come together in the ways that we thought we were. This whole project was intended to be a very hands-on, in-person, community-driven process where we were going to engage, especially the young people that are attending programs on site at the education building. And that's not happening. You know, there's a youth build classroom that happens on site at the education building. And just due to safety considerations, we had to really reimagine this project. And so we are now virtual. We basically took the programmatic element of this to virtual. And each week what we're doing is we're filming the development of the garden through a series of roundtable discussions, exploring the life of the seed. And our audience, our intended audience is really people who are re-entering and returning from incarceration and supporting them, being a community resource for them. So Tobias and Brendan, my question for you is, you know, the two of you work together in growing food and landscaping. And I know that has been a healing experience for the two of you as well. And so I'd love for you to just share, you know, how do you see gardening and following the life of a seed as healing for people who have been harmed by systemic violence and harmed by the prison industrial complex? So Tobias, maybe you can help start that conversation.
Yeah, thank you again, Claire, and thanks everyone who has joined us. Peace to my sister and good friend and champion Dottie, who's here. Hey, sis. As I said in my spoken word earlier, that coming from a position of, you know, not being accepted in space, you know, everywhere we went, in my experience in the 90s, LAPD, the sheriff department, was adamant in that we were not welcome in the city, and they were doing everything in their power to get us out into prisons or to killing us, literally. Just have that in mind when you're dealing with me. So you say the concrete and a sunflower, as you see one of my sunflower hats, growing from the concrete, that really takes from Tupac's course, and the rolls that come from the concrete. Don't blame me for the scars upon my petals, but look at the resiliency that it takes for the rolls to grow from the concrete. So the concrete is out in these communities, the asphalt community, the concrete and steel in prisons that literally we can grow in something like a sunflower. So moving and working together with Brendan, and not only you know, growing food, which is essential, but landscaping is a science within itself. And yes, we work in the inner city, Leimert Park, but also, you know, we're blessed to work in other areas, Beverly Hills, Pacific Palisades, on the bluffs, and people pay a lot of good money for landscaping for a reason. But in the landscaping, you have to commune with the earth, you know, and once you start to become that kind of listener of what the earth is speaking on, what plants are speaking on, you know, that little bird might be kind of upset that you took that branch with his nest was on there. So matter of fact, we're gonna leave that branch alone. Matter of fact, me and Brandon are gonna walk all the way around this estate and not bother her because she has an egg in there. Come on now. Come on, we're talking about consideration for life in all of its forms. So when you ask me about following the seed, you know, I'm that seed. You're that seed, you know? And if you understand the power of soil and imbibing water and needing sunlight and oxygen and care and being placed in the correct kind of space so you can, just think, coming out of prison after 30 years, 50 years old. Cell phones was the size of refrigerators, you know, the time I left, literally. Now, man, come on, man, you got a little cell phone, you can hold it inside of your hand, so it's a different world. And as we know, as I pass it to my brother Brendan, seeds grow in phases. And the most dangerous part of a seed or a plant's life when it's being transitioned. So if you are taking me out of a system, a structural, systemic, and historical system that says, I hate you, I hate your black body, I hate your face, I hate how you look, I'm gonna beat you, I'm gonna hang you, I'm gonna F you over every chance I get. Now you put me in society and expect me to be a whole person? You put me back in society, I'm just supposed to be all right and be able to just integrate myself in? That's why plants die in the transition. So if we don't create safe spaces and show these allegories in the seed's life and show the proper care, not just socially, but professionally, because I got to make a living out here. You feel me? So that's just coming from a direct personal standpoint. And I'm just humbled and I'm thankful to speak in my voice on my terms. And I pass that to my good friend, Brendan, who, you know, we do this worship together like 5 days out of the week, brother. What's going on, man?
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to say very, very simple words, and that is that gardening is therapeutic. You have to get out of your head. You have to understand that you're not working with a mechanized system that you can fully control. You have to be in the moment. And when you can make just those few shifts in yourself, then the gardens really respond. And there's a bit of magic there. And I'm not saying that lightly. Gardens love to be witnessed. They love to be tended. They love to be noticed. And when you do that, then you have the experience that Tobias and I have over and over again, where, as he says, birds fall out of trees and bugs climb out on the edge of branches to say hello. And nature comes and she just smiles at us all day long. And it never feels like work, ever.
Ever.
Ever. So we endeavor to just take that practice and encapsulate it and make spaces that we can invite other people to participate with us in.
Thank you. Yeah, and I was just going to say that a long-term vision is connected to this project, and the work that Angel City Urban Farms is doing is around job creation and creating economic opportunity for formerly incarcerated people to do exactly as you're talking about, to have meaningful vocation, touching the earth, and that healing experience of participating in landscaping and garden design. And I just think that's also such a critical element. And we have 10 minutes left of our session, and I do see some comments and questions in the chat, so I'll just kind of quickly highlight them and then we could open it up. So you know, there was a lot of love for Tobias when you were speaking, when you kicked it off. Thank you. It says, "You're doing it, Tobias. Preach. Thank you for sharing your light. Such amazing work, Tobias. So much love for compost. Such a beautiful and valuable project. Touches on so many aspects of sustainability. So glad it was selected as Legacy Project. Thank you. We are too. Can Tobias please share the title of his book and whether we could buy it on Amazon?" And also it says, one other question, well, Maya Henderson, who was a big part of selecting us for the Legacy Project. Thank you, Maya. She said, "Overjoyed and encouraged to hear about the shift in programming given the challenges of COVID. Consideration is key and critical in all sustainability and resiliency work." And then a follow-up question is, what does the outreach work look like in this challenging time? So two questions for you, Tobias: your book, and then what does outreach look like at this time?
Okay, concerning the book, Words Uncaged, that's another I guess you would say, another organization that helped me. Well, I created in prison with Dr. Badhan Roy, Cal State University. They should be able to go online. If not, you know, what is the site called? I forgot the site. Hoover?
Hoover.
Yeah, Hoover. If you go on Hoover, Tobias Tubbs, you get my email, contact me personally. I make sure you get a book and I'll sign it, find it myself. As for another question was clear.
What does outreach look like? So what are your considerations around how to connect to community members that this program is designed for at this time, given COVID?
As the person that, you know, I ain't gonna put Dottie's business now, she's not here for business, I guess. But me and her are very adamant in touching young people, whether they're in the system or out the system, in the most, I guess, careful way, understanding COVID is reality. I'm still hitting the streets, grabbing kids off the street, to be truthful. You know, I mask them, social distance, but juveniles, babies, you know, sadly, they're not too much about Zoom. They're not too much about, a lot of them don't even have the technology, a lot of them are homeless. And so personally, what I've been doing, not along just what we're doing as a business, I spend at least 2 to 3 days out of the week getting with young men that I know that came out of the system, and they went in as juveniles, now they're in their mid-30s, empowering them so we can get inside our communities and get these young kids up off the street. So personally, that's what I'm doing, and I'm using all the resources from y'all, all the love, all the support, all the money to do that. So I appreciate the love, but we also have to fund this movement. So that's how I'm personally doing it. 1, involve myself in these kind of organizations. 2, just a lot of prayer, a lot of protecting myself, keeping my own immune system up, covering up and grabbing babies off the street and showing them positive experiences.
Right on. Yeah. Okay. I was just going to say, if folks want to type, you are welcome to type your questions in the chat box, or I believe you might be able to unmute yourself if you have a question as well. Maya had another question about the plants themselves that are going to anchor the rooftop and the soil-based garden. So maybe Brendan, you could weigh in here.
The question isn't very specific.
What plants are going to anchor the rooftop?
We are going to grow our food. We're only growing food plants on the rooftop garden. The rooftop garden is designed to have 2 different circuits. So that will be 2 different tanks with nutrient solution and 2 different sets of sprayers and so on. And that will allow us to have a nutrient solution that is for plants that are just leafy greens and don't make fruit, which prefer a certain kind of nutrient dynamic. And then the other circuit will be for plants that are going to fruit for us. And that could include root crops, and it's not necessarily just what we typically think of as a fruit. So I'm not sure, I'm sure that doesn't answer her question, but we've made the design flexible so that we can change with the seasons, and it's adaptable, and it should be a fun thing to play with, actually.
Awesome. She said it did.
Okay.
I'm curious, is Josh Foster on this call? He is our architect from KFA, and if he's on, I'd love to bring you in and just get your thoughts on what it was like to put together plans for this project. Okay, maybe he wasn't able to join us, but we were really grateful to be connected to him through US Green Building Council. Does anyone else have any other comments or questions for the panelists, for us?
Can you hear me? This is Maya.
Hi, Maya. Yeah.
Hi. Last time I promised to let you guys know. But so excited and overjoyed. But I think you guys are such an example of project, and we would love to see other people get into this work. Could you touch on quickly, I mean, outside of COVID, what challenges and opportunities going through all of this have brought up for you guys? Like, what would you warn people against, or like highlight for people as they get into this work?
Highlight for people or ways to get involved?
Both, whatever you feel like sharing.
Well, I'll just offer a few sort of like what's next for us and some ways to connect in. So we're expecting to release the video series by the end of September. And so if folks would like to receive an announcement and view those videos, you can email us at mmconnect@mccartychurch.org, and I can drop that in the chat as well, mmconnect@mccartychurch.org, and we'll add you to the list. And then we will be welcoming volunteers in, small socially distanced garden build days. We're waiting for our permits to be approved from the city, but we will welcome people to get involved, and also just in an ongoing way to be a part of the life of the garden and keeping it going. So if you're interested in that, you can email that same email and let us know. And also, to Tobias's point, we would welcome any donations to the project. And a really easy way to do that is you can text 77977, text McCarty Church to 77977, and you'll receive a link to donate. And you could just add Resiliency Garden to the memo so that we know that that contribution is specifically for the project. And yeah, I mean, I think that yes, Tobias, go ahead.
Yeah, I would share something on the challenges, mainly because the reentry concept was mainly came up out of my direct experiences. I was blessed before COVID to get a contract. You know, I guess it doesn't matter where it was at, but what it did, it provided me experience of PSAs and remote viewing. And so when this happened with COVID, we was able to brainstorm and see how can we show this remotely and possibly get a larger audience than maybe that we would get if we just was in our own communities. Although, you know, human connection is everything, but there's almost 3 million people incarcerated, imprisoned in Americans' prisons, and to have the opportunity to get what we're doing inside of those cells during COVID, when many are hopeless, really went well. So 2 points. The challenge is, how do you transform such a project? 2 is, I had an experience outside of this project when people treated me very kindly with love and respect as a colleague, gave me a job on parole where I am the first person on parole to get this kind of job, as a consultant, paid me how I should be paid. And then that was able to loosen me up to do the work in the community and to bring the idea that we can do this remotely. And then we took the idea, and that's how we're doing the modules now. So I believe even in the midst of challenges, resiliency is drawing out your transferable skills, taking maybe traumatic situations inside of one's life and finding the positivity within it, and then executing that. And so that's what I would offer us now, that whatever life is throwing at us, we have within us all as a seed. This one little seed has a whole pine tree in it, a whole oak tree in it. So we have everything we need. So that was an experience that I had, that it actually took a community of people and businesses to bring this into fruition.
That's so beautiful. And how can people stay in touch with the two of you and learn more about Angel City Urban Farms?
Oh, well, brother, sister, I just learned how to do a chat. So this is my first chat, so I just put my email on there to everybody, say, let's connect. I don't know if that's done or not, but that's done. But access for myself, I don't understand all this tech stuff, but I put my email on there. I'm pretty sure Brendan will offer some information for Angel City Urban Farms, but we ain't hard to find. We're right there. What's up, Brendan? How can you connect with us?
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, you guys are available for partnership, in the landscaping, gardening space. And I do encourage anybody who's interested to reach out and connect with you all. And we're also on social media, on Instagram. You could find the church at McCarty Connect on Instagram, and also on Facebook, McCarty Memorial Christian Church. And last but not least, because we do have to wrap up, I do really want to extend very special thanks to Ben Stapleton, Katie Fries, Maya Henderson, Luke Lombardi, and the entire U.S. Green Building Council team, who not only have been our partners in launching this project, but continuously lend their support and guidance. And we couldn't have done it without you. And also, again, to Josh of KFA, who did the plans and just donated his time so generously to this project. We're so grateful. We look forward to continuing to build this resiliency garden with all of you. We hope to hear from you, and just thank you for your time and joining us this afternoon. And with that, we have concluded our session. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your time at the conference.
All right.
Thanks, Tobias, Eddie, and Brendan. Appreciate you.
All right, sis. Peace, and thank you, everyone.
Take care.